Lesson 11 is multiplying decimal fractions by multi-digit whole numbers, and then reasoning about where we are going to place our decimal in our final answer. We are working with the problem 7 3/800 times 41. Step 1 is you want to round the factors to estimate the product. For 7 3/800, I'm rounding to the nearest one whole number, so I'm going to look at that next number over and ask myself, is it 5 or more or less than 5? This is less than 5, so I'm going to round my whole number down to 7. Then for my factor of 41, I'm rounding to the nearest tenths, so I'm going to look at the next number over. It is a 1, which is less than 5, so I'm going to round down again to 40, and then I multiply those two rounded factors to find my estimate, which is 280. The way that I did that quickly was I saw that there was one 0, so I put that 0 at the end, and then that left me with just 4 times 7. With our estimate, we want to ask ourselves two questions. Will our final product be greater or less than our estimate? And since our actual factors are greater than our rounded factors, we know that our answer will also be greater than. The other thing that you want to look at is what place value is the answer in. And our estimate is in the hundredths, so we want to keep that in mind as we look at our final product and make sure that our final product is also in or around the hundredths. Step 2 is we want to rename our decimal and then decompose both factors. When you're renaming your decimal, you want to look at the lowest place value, and for this number it is in the hundredths, so we're going to rename our decimal in hundredths, which would be 738 hundredths. Next, we want to decompose both factors. So for the 738 hundredths, we would say we have 700 for the 7 plus 30 for the 3, and then our 8 is in the ones place, so that would be 8. And then we would want to do 41, so the 4 is in the tens spot, so that's 40, plus the 1 is in the ones spot, so that would just be 1. Step 3 is to draw and label an area model, and you want to make sure that your 738 hundredths is labeled. So for my top, I'm going to do the 738 hundredths. I have 3 numbers, so I'm going to make 3 columns, and I want to show the difference in size by creating one big column for the 700th, one medium-sized column for the 30, and one a little bit smaller column for the 8th. And then I will label them up top. So we have 700, 30, and 8. Then on the side, I have 41, which is 40 plus 1, so I'm going to have one larger column for the 40 and one smaller column for the 1. And then I will label them with 40 and 1. And then if you want to add these addition signs in the middle to remind yourself that these lines actually really signify that you are adding all of these numbers together to get your factors. And then don't forget to label your factor, and we are labeling ours with hundredths because we renamed our decimal in the hundredths. Step 4 is to find the partial products, which we would do by first writing all of our equations for each of our boxes. So we take the top number and multiply that by the side number. So for this first box, we have 700 multiplied by 40, and we'd find that product. The easy way that I like to do this is count up the zeros. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, and so I have 3 zeros in my answer, and then I just multiply what's left. 4 times 7, which is 28. So my first box has a value of 28 thousandths, and then we'll repeat the process with each of the following boxes. For the next box, we have 30 times 40 from the side, 2 zeros in my factors, so 2 zeros in my answer, and then I have 4 times 3 left, which is 12. So this box is equal to 1,200. Then we have 8 times 40 from the side, 1 0 in my factors, so 1 0 in my answer, then 4 times 8, which is 32. That goes in front of the 0, so my product is 320. For the bottom row, we have 700 times 1, and any number times 1 is that same number or itself, so we have 700. Then we have 30 times 1, which is 30. And then 8 times 1, which is 8. Now what we want to do to find our partial products is we want to add up all of our amounts in each row. So for this first row, we'll have 28,000 plus 1,200 plus 320, and that will be our first product. So if you notice, when I set up my addition sentence, I made sure that all of my numbers are lined up by place value. Now it's easy to add. So 0 plus 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 plus 0 plus 2 is 2. 0 and 2 plus 3 is 5. 1 and 8 is 9. And then 2 plus 0 is 2. So my first partial product is 29,520. For my next partial product, I'm going to do the bottom row here, which will be 700 plus 30 plus 8. Making sure again that I lined up all of my place values. Now we can solve. 0 plus 0 plus 8 is 8. 0 and 3 is 3. And 7 plus zeros is 7. So my two partial products for this problem are 29,520 and 738. Now to find my final answer, I'm going to add these two partial products together. So let's add them up. 0 plus 8 is 8. 2 plus 3 is 5. 5 plus 7 is 12, so I leave the 2 and carry the 1. 1 plus 9 is 10, so I leave the 0 and carry the 1. 1 and 2 is 3. Now you want to make sure that you remember that you were using hundredths, so your answer is also going to be in hundredths. Now step 5, you want to write the final product in standard form, and in this same step you're going to use your estimate from above up here, which was 280, to check the reasonableness of your answer. So to write in standard form, my unit is in hundredths, which I know is 2 places after my decimal, so I'll draw those 2 lines just to keep my product straight. And then I'll start filling in the numbers. My first number was 8. Then I have a 5, a 2, and a 0, and then a 3. So my final answer is 302 0.58 or 302 and 58 hundredths. The other thing that you can do is looking at our final product here in 30,258 hundredths and relating it back to our estimate. We can say, oh, I notice that my estimate is in the hundreds place value, which must mean that my final product will also be in the hundreds. So you can put your decimal in the appropriate place according to that. So hundreds, if we wanted to change that, would be 302. Then we would place our decimal here after our hundredths, which would give us the same answer as when we wrote it in standard form. Next, we want to relate to the standard algorithm, and so step 6 is going to be to write our multiplication problem in our standard algorithm. So we have 7.38 multiplied by 41. Now, instead of renaming our decimal here, we're just going to think about this 7.38 as 738, and just remember that our answer will be in hundreds. And I'm going to abbreviate that with HU. So now we can set about solving our standard algorithm. So 1 times 8 is 8. 1 times 3 is 3. And then 1 times 7 is 7. Then I'm going to move on to multiplying by my 4. And remember that this 4 is not 4, it's actually 40. And so we want to show that by having our 0 down here to show that our answer is in tens. Then we can multiply. 4 times 8 is 32. We leave the 2 and carry the 3. 4 times 3 is 12, plus 3 is 15. Leave the 5, carry the 1. 4 times 7 is 28, plus 1 is 29. And we can put the whole 29 here because there isn't anything else to multiply by. And at this step, we can stop and check our answers by relating it back to our area model and seeing if our partial products are correct. So we have 738 here for a partial product. Same thing for our area model. 29,520. Same partial product as our area model. Now we just add them up. 8 and 0 is 8. 3 and 2 is 5. 7 and 5 is 12. Leave the 2, carry the 1. 1 and 9 is 10. Leave the 0, carry the 1. 1 and 2 is 3. And remember that this answer is actually in hundreds. So now step 8 is to write in standard form. We can do the same thing that we did down here by saying, oh, hundredths, I know that's 2 place values past my decimal and fill in from there. Or we can think about it this way. When we were thinking about 7.38, we were actually thinking about it as 738, which would mean that we multiplied this decimal by 100 in order to think about it as 738, because we just would move that decimal over here. And because we multiplied it by a 100 up here, the opposite of multiplication would be division, which means we would divide our answer down here by 100 also. And in thinking about dividing by hundreds, there's 2 zeros, so that would mean that I would move my decimal 2 place values. So my answer would be 302 and 58 hundredths, or 0.58, which is the same as we got with our area model.